Welcome to section 1.6, which is solving compound and absolute value inequalities. Today, for day 6, we're just going to focus on the first half of the chapter, which is solving compound inequalities. Tomorrow, for day 7, we'll be going over absolute value inequalities. So again, today is just compound inequalities. First thing that we should probably talk about is, well, what is a compound inequality? Well, a compound inequality consists of two inequalities joined by and or. So a compound inequality is either going to be an and inequality or it's going to be an or inequality. We're going to do both in today's video. So the first example number 1, is a compound inequality. It has two inequalities. It has x is less than -4, and then it has or x is greater than or equal to 3. So that's a compound inequality. We have two inequalities, in this case joined by the word or. So intersection is the graph of a compound inequality containing the word and. So an intersection is always an and. Now, looking at example number 2, this is an intersection. You know that it's an and because you have two inequalities that are joined together. So in example number 1, we actually had the word or. When you put two inequalities into one, that's going to be an and. So in this case, the left side is one inequality. 8 is less than 3y minus 7. We can say and then we also have this right side. And 3y minus 7 is less than or equal to 23. So here are our two inequalities. We're going to need to solve both. But I can solve them together. So I'm going to rewrite it the way it's written. 8 is less than 3y minus 7, which is less than or equal to 23. Okay, I need to get y alone. So I need to focus on this stuff in the middle. In order to get y alone, I'm going to need to move over the 7 and the 3. So the first thing that I want to do to counteract subtracting 7 is I'm going to add 7. Now, I have to add 7 to the right side, to the left side, and to the middle. It gets added everywhere. These 7's cancel, which is what I wanted. So I'm left with 3y in the middle. Okay, now 8 add 7 will give me 15. 23 add 7 will give me 30. Now I just need to get rid of that 3. Now I can divide by 3. I have to do the same thing to the left side, same thing to the right side. So those 3's cancel and I'm left with just y. 15 divided by 3 is 5. 30 divided by 3 is 10. So this is how you're going to write your inequality. This is your answer. This is saying y is between 5 and 10. What this really means is that y is greater than 5 and y is less than or equal to 10. It's both. In math, we don't really write and. We write the two inequalities together. So then you're going to have to graph this on a number line. Okay. So the first inequality is less than, and it does not have an equal sign, so that's going to be an open circle at 5. Second inequality is less than or equal to, that's going to be a closed circle at 10. Anytime that you have an intersection or you have an and graph, you're going to shade in between the two. So and is always going to be in between. Okay, so that was the first compound inequality. Example number 3, I would like you to do on your own. So start by solving for z, and then you're going to have to graph your answer. Pause the video and come back when you have finished. Good luck. Okay, let's see how we did. So first thing that we want to do is we want to solve for z in the middle. So I'm going to have to get rid of the -2 and the -3. First, I'm subtracting 2. So to counteract that, I want to add 2. Because I did it in the middle, I have to add 2 to the right side and 2 to the left side. -5 add 2 is going to be -3. The 2's in the middle cancel, so I'm left with just -3z. -14 add 2 is going to be -12. Now I need to get rid of that -3. To do that, I'm going to divide everything by -3. If I divide the middle, I'm going to have to divide the right and left side as well. So those -3's are gone, and I'm left with just z. -3 divided by -3 is +1. -12 divided by -3 is +4. Now hopefully you remember to flip those inequalities. Anytime you multiply or divide by a negative number, you're going to flip the direction of the inequality. So this is what you're saying, or this is what your answer should have been. This is saying that z is between 1 and 4. It's greater than or equal to 1, and it's also less than 4 at the same time. So this is what I really mean. Z is greater than or equal to 1, and it's also less than 4 at the same time. Now to graph this. Okay, you should have had a closed circle at 1, an open circle at 4, and then it's an and, so you should have shaded everything in between. Now you might be asking yourself, how am I going to know if it's an and or an or? Well, keep going with me and you're going to see at this next section for union. So a union is the graph of a compound inequality containing the word or. You're going to know that it's a union problem because you're actually going to see the word or. So in math, we don't really write the and, but we do write the or. For an or problem, you're going to have two separate inequalities. So I have this k plus 6 is less than -4. I have or 3k is greater than or equal to 14. Now these you actually have to solve separately. So in the previous two problems, we had and problems, and we said there's two inequalities that exist, but we can solve them all at the same time. These two inequalities, for example, number 4, you have to solve separately. So I'm going to subtract 6, and I get k is less than -10. Or, other side, I'm going to divide by 3. I get k is greater than or equal to 14 over 3. Okay, so I had to solve the two separately. I still have to graph. I know -10 is going to be on there. I know 14 over 3 is going to be on there. Zeros in between. There's some other numbers in there. I'm not going to worry about filling them in right now, though. For the k is less than 10, that's going to be an open circle. Greater than or equal to 14 over 3 is going to be a closed circle. Okay, now here's the difference. If it's an or problem, you want to shade outside. So if we want to write that down. So and is always in between, or is everything outside. So you're saying that your x, or your k in this case, falls in the left inequality or it falls in the right inequality. That's why it's the outside. And is always in between. So if you would be so kind as to flip the page, please. Here's the example that I would like you to try. This is another or problem. I would like you to solve and graph. Good luck. Okay, let's see how we did. So the first inequality you had to solve was -3g plus 7 is less than -2. The second one was 2g over -3 is greater than or equal to 1. So on the left side, you should have subtracted 7. So you get -3g is less than -9. If I divide by -3, I get g is greater than +3. So hopefully you remembered to flip that inequality. Anytime that you multiply or divide by a negative number, you have to flip the sign. Okay, the second one might have been a little more difficult for you. I'm dividing by -3, so to counteract that, I have to multiply both sides by -3. So those -3's cancel. I get 2g is, gotta remember to flip the inequality. So it's going to become less than or equal to, I'm multiplying by -3, so that's why I had to flip. 1 times -3 is -3. I divide by 2, I get g is less than or equal to -3 over 2. And this is an OR. So this is my final answer. G has to be greater than 3, or it has to be less than or equal to -3 over 2. Okay, in terms of graphing, we have an open circle at 3, and we're going to have a closed circle at -3 over 2. Hopefully you know that that's -1.5, so it's halfway between -1 and -2. So that'll be a closed circle. Now, because this is an OR, we're going to shade everything outside. So for your answer, you should have had this graph and the accompanying compound inequality. If you made a mistake, that's okay, but hopefully you now see what mistake you made. In addition, in this section, besides solving inequalities, you're also going to have to write them in order to model a word problem. So looking at example number 6, it says Cammie is considering painting her room. She estimates that she will need between 2 and 3 gallons of paint. The table below shows the price per gallon for each type of paint Cammie is considering. Write a compound inequality and determine how much she could be spending. Now this you could probably do before even watching this video. We just need to think about it a little bit. It's not really in terms of it is in terms of an and or an or. Thinking about a graph. So remember, our and is going to be everything in between. Our or is going to be 2 outer tails. So the first thing that we need to decide is this an and or an or problem? So is she going to be paying between 2 prices? So like maybe between $10 and $20, that would be an and. Or is she going to be paying the extreme amounts? So more than $20 or less than $10. Hopefully you know that this is going to be an and problem. She's going to be spending between 2 amounts of money. So I'm going to do it in terms of cost. So her cost is going to be between 2 amounts. It's going to be an and problem. So I need to think about what's going to be the lowest amount that she could possibly spend, and what's going to be the highest amount that she could possibly spend. Well, lowest amount. The cheapest is going to be this flat paint. So that's going to be $21.98. But then it also says she needs between 2 and 3 gallons. So best case, the least amount of money, she's going to only need 2 gallons. So it's going to be that $21.98 times 2. Now in terms of the most expensive that she could be spending is if she uses this gloss paint, this $25.98. Okay, and then if she's spending the highest amount, she's going to need the most amount of paint, which is going to be 3 gallons. So now, to finish this, we just need to calculate those 2 end results. $21.98 times 2 is going to be $43.96, and then $25.98 times 3 will give us $77.94. So if Cammie is painting her room, she's going to have to spend between $43.96 and $77.94. So I know that might have been a little bit of a confusing explanation. If that's the case, please make sure you star this one and you make sure to ask either myself or your teacher tomorrow. So a quick little trivia. How many time zones does the United States have? So write down your guess. Okay. We have a few more examples to do, and then you're going to be finished. Example number 7 says, write an inequality, this should say, for each graph. I'm going to do the left one with you, you're going to do the right one. So the left one, you're going to notice we have the outer parts of the graph. So this should tell you right now it's going to be an OR. This left side is x is less than or equal to -4. Remember to show that equal sign because it's a filled in circle, it's a solid circle. And then I have or, the right side is going to be x is greater than or equal to 6. That's your entire answer. So not too bad. Pause the video real quick and you do the one on the right side, please. Okay, let's see how we did. First thing that you should notice is that this is an and problem. So it's going to be a compound inequality where x is in the middle. You should have x between -12 and -6. Please make sure that your inequality signs are the correct direction. So this is saying I have x is greater than or equal to -12, so it's bigger than -12. It's also less than -6. If you can't think out the directions of which way of the inequality makes sense, then you just need to memorize. The inequality is always going to go the same direction for an and. They're always going to point to the left. Hopefully that went well for you. If not, we're going to do some more examples in class tomorrow. Please flip the page. Okay, you have one more to do that you're going to do on your own. I have a calculator icon there because you're definitely going to need a calculator. So, good luck with this one. Pause the video and come back when you are finished. Okay, let's see how we did. The first inequality to solve should have been easy. Divide by -3. You get j is less than or equal to -7. Hopefully you remember to flip that inequality. The second inequality, I'm going to guess, gave us all some issues. First thing that you should have done is subtract 2/3 from both sides. So I get -1/2 j is less than or equal to -13/6. Next thing that you should have done is divide by that -1/2. So we get j is less than or equal to. Now hopefully you knew to put that -1/2 in parentheses. If you didn't, that would have messed you up. Once you do that, you get j is less than or equal to 13/3. So j is less than or equal to -7, or j is less than or equal to 13/3. Now you should be saying in your head that I did something wrong. Now if we look, our two inequalities are the same direction, that is. For an or, that should never be the case. If our two inequalities are the same direction, we're not going to end up with two parts of the graph. We're only going to end up with one part of the graph. We're not going to end up with the high and the low. So I made a mistake somewhere. Hopefully you can see I divided by a negative number. When you divide by a negative number, you have to flip the sign of the inequality. So this one should really say j is greater than or equal to 13/3. So this should have been your final answer. Now to graph this, in the interest of time, I'm not going to put any other numbers. So less than or equal to 7 should have been solid and then shade, and then solid at 13/3 and shade. So this is what you should have ended up with. If you didn't and you made a mistake, that's okay. Please know that you will be expected to use fractions and decimals with and without a calculator. So in class we can go over how to use those fractions, how to multiply, divide, add, and subtract fractions as we go along in the year. But you will need to know how to do that, and you will need to know how to put that in your calculator correctly. So lastly, you're going to notice some geometry examples. I'm not going to go over them with you in the video, but your teacher will go over them in class. So please make sure to. Before I say bye, I want to answer the trivia question that I asked you. So the question was, how many time zones are there in the United States? So I got this map for you right here. It appears that there are 4 time zones: Eastern, Central, Mountain, and Pacific time. We are in the Central time zone. So if you said 4, good job. But there's a little bit of a catch. Let's look at a different map. So here's another map. We noticed those 4 time zones, but we forgot about Alaska and Hawaii. Alaska and Hawaii are in their separate time zones. So really, there are 6 time zones in the United States if you count Alaska and Hawaii. So if you said 6, great job. If you said 4, that's the answer for the continental United States. Now that was just a little bit of fun. If you have any questions from this video, please make sure you write them down, star them, bold them, somehow remember so that you can ask your teacher tomorrow. Bye.